Hello and welcome back to Fandom Fridays, where we proceed to check out all the fanfics that are not pony related. Why? Because some of us know that there are a whole bunch of fanfics out there that are not pony related and want to actually show it to you. Well, today is a special day because I get to do a Ducktales fic. What more can I say? It's a childhood staple for a lot of people. It's based off of a classic Disney comics. Yes, the Disney comics, which surprisingly are very, very, very popular in Europe. I mean, mega popular. I mean, we are talking super popular to the point where one of the guys from Nightwish actually did a whole entire soundtrack to a comic book series. And why not? The Ducktales comics are the Donald Duck comics and the Scrooge McDuck comics are filled with tons of adventure, fun, excitement, comedy, and very serious moments, and sometimes even some really good sad moments. Why, it's only in the Donald Duck comics that we get the return of the three Caballeros, and it's also well done there. What I'm basically saying is that the comics are great, and the show was great. Granted, it didn't match up with everything from the comics, but it still tried to retain some of that fun and adventure, which is why I'm glad for the new show. He's also a David Tennant fanboy. I'm not Trixie! Just because the Doctor is playing Scrooge McDuck with a Scottish accent does not mean I'm going to go gaga over it. When you found out, you literally grabbed your sonic screwdriver, slung it around over your head, and was screaming woo. Anyway, and I figured to celebrate the fact that there's a new series coming out soon, come on, work with me, Disney, I decided to bring out this. A DuckTales fanfic. Set 20 years into the future. Well, of where they are. Just wait. So without further ado, stay here as we hear at the Treeberry Memorial Library are proud to present DuckTales 20 Years Later by... You know, we were doing good with the screen names earlier. Anonymous number 963053. Get better screen names. Or at least one that's in English. DuckTales, 20 years later, by anonymous number 964305. Oh, for crying out! That's it, I'm out. I know I normally do these titles serious like this, but no, I just, no. You want somebody else to read the screen name and read out the title, you get somebody else to do it. I'm done. Call me next week. Caboose! Right. By anonymous number 69643053. Chapter 1. Prologue in Episode 1. Prologue. 1967. A legend died today. In the early hours of May 28, 1967, an old man, beaten, bloodied, malnourished, found his way back to the front door of his mansion, cradling in his arms a dead goose and several eggs made of pure gold, hinting at an adventure that may never be told. Soon after, Scrooge McDuck, age 100, expired from his wounds. He is survived by his nephew, Donald Duck, his three grandnephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, who will all receive a share of his vast fortune. As per his request, his body will be cremated, and ashes scattered around his home at Glasgow. He will be missed. Behold, the glory of 1920s island living. From its colonization to 1905 to midway through the Great Depression, the name Cape Suzette was synonymous for adventure, wild abandon, danger, and even a matter of excitement. The captains of the air flew back and forth between the outside world and the oasis in the middle of the Indian Ocean, delivering cargoes large and small, fighting off pirates and looters. The island was equal parts civilization and fortress, lived in and beloved by the cream of society's crop, protected on all sides by natural high stone walls, dotted with anti-aircraft guns installed when it was a trade outpost during World War I. You know, that sort of makes sense. I've always wondered why they had those giant anti-aircraft cannons. Lax law enforcement and a social whirlywig brought many to this paradise, but the same lax police and excitement would soon be its downfall. During and to present, its bank accounts dried up, and all the excitement turned inward, expressed in rampant, violent crime and infighting. Many riots broke out when the native islanders left, not content any more with passing out fake leaves and quiche to tourists, decided to take back their island. The ultimate act of political defiance caused the island's economy to finally collapse, sending many packing back home for good. From the present on, the only people living in the Art Deco ghost town were the islanders calling this place their home, hell or high water, and pilots and transients with no place to go. Another violent upgrade occurred in 1939 all the way through to 45, when Japan attempted to sweep across Asia to meet its allies in Europe. Germany tried to sweep through Europe and Africa, and another great war had begun. The island and the remaining manpower were annexed by China, thrusting the island into the role of trade outpost once again, close enough to all of the fronts to be useful. Bombing runs by Japanese fighters decimated the still beautiful architecture. The island's population did their best to man the now horribly outdated cliff guns to hold them back. Pirates of the air were a thing of the past. The new aggressors didn't want their gold or cargo. They wanted their lives. That too passed. With a new Chinese contingent living on the island, it wasn't long before the island was back into the swing of civilization again. While never again attaining the glory of its heyday, it was used and renovated. Trade, money, and people came flocking back to the island's life once again. Chinese mixed with islanders, mixed with Americans, and British mixed with Africans, mixed with Indians, mixed with every other creed and color under the sun, creating a soup of languages and cultures, blending together in peaceful yet uneasy tranquility. Essentially cut off from the rest of the world after the apocalyptic war, the rising stone and steel towers, overlapping squares and arches of deco buildings stand high above, cracked and worn by years of misuse and disuse. Everyone living there is considered a citizen of the Cape, and outsiders are always tourists, until one would stay long enough to be an old-timer, a Dutch citizen yourself. Time stood still in the turbulent 50s to exuberant 60s. Finally deemed useless as a trade post due to its natural walls no longer being enough to keep out enemies. The people on the island lived a sort of dream, immune to politics, unconcerned with ideology, forgotten by the world's superpowers. This little U.S.-owned, China-operated speck of land in the Indian Ocean floated along in a haze, with only the occasional smuggle or odd export to break up the monotony. In 1969, a young duck wearing a brown leather flying jacket and goggles, piloting an old-fashioned biplane, crash-landed in the lagoon connected to the ocean by the thin cliff passage. And the next moment, the duck, nothing hurt but his pride, swam to shore and shook the salty water off his feathers. He looked around, breathed deep of the potent sea air, and in good time, Huey Duck became a citizen of the Cape. Away, across the sea, over Africa's deserts and savannas, towards the States, into the States, past the illustrious city of Duckburg, a few hundred miles away. There stands its twin city. Gothic high-rises stand, belying a design ethic with a taste for gargoyles and spiky tresses. St. Canard, the darkness to Duckbird's light. It stands as a monument to mobs and petty crime, to sirens and the sleazy runoff of the excess of the 60s. In the human world, it's known as Gotham. As a city, St. Canard always had to see the darkness about it. From the prohibition on it, it was forever the organized crime capital of the USA, and very little changed that. As the times changed, so did the crimes. With gin legal, bosses moved on to other vices, monopolizing the illegal substances people use, searching for happiness and escape from the day-to-day drudgery. However, after the end of the Second World War, something remarkable happened. As if reflecting back the darkness, a shadow, a mere slip of a figure, began to prowl the streets preying on crime. His cape of a deep purple concealed in a smoke bomb, he would attempt to bring everyone to justice, and from the lowest dealer to the highest kingpin. Nobody saw his face clearly. Some say he was a monster. Some swore he was a ghost. All, however, knew the name, the motto, the terror that fights in the night. All who hid from the law in the shadows had to answer to Darkwing Duck. He wasn't the only one, however. Several of these masked heroes emerged to do battle with the criminal element. Some ordinary citizens, and some truly exceptional creatures. However, as good and evil will always wage war, so too will there be a balance between them. As masks rose for one side, so did they for the other. Normal barons and bosses gave way to superpowered kingpins and muscle. The two contingents warred away for the lives and safety of the people caught in between. Okay, I gotta do this once. J. Edgar Hoover looked up at Darkwing and asked, "What about escalation?" Darkwing narrowed his eyes under his mask. "Escalation? We start buying Kevlar. They buy armor-piercing bullets. We start getting semi-automatics to get automatics. And you're disappearing and reappearing behind smoke, hiding behind a mask. Now take this fellow. Has a a little like you. Taste for the theatrical." J. Edgar then handed D.W. a broken light bulb. Darkwing Duck nodded his head as he put it into his pocket. "I'll look into it." As D.W. turned to jump off the cliff, J. Edgar said, "I never said thank you." Turning his head over his shoulder, D.W. smiled slowly as he said, "And you'll never have to." He then proceeded to leap off the rooftop, only to fall with a yell and crash into the fire escape, another fire escape, into the trash bin, and then finally rolled onto his rat catcher. Halfway through the 60s, Darkwing Duck, the symbol of the light against injustice, died, killed while disrupting an international crime ring. 1 week later, he rose from the dead to strike back at those who had wronged him, seemingly reinvigorated by his own demise. He fights on to this day, inspiring countless others to take up arms against cruelty and evil, and give the power of the fighting cans. One young duck, chased out of Duckburg by a feud with his brother, found his calling one night after almost being robbed of everything he owned in the world: a green plaid jacket, matching tie, and a carpet bag full of money and bank slips. He was chased down a dark alley by two goons wearing dented iron implements, and cornered in the dead end. The duck turned, reaching around himself for something to use as a makeshift weapon, when suddenly, biff! Pam! Pow! Both goons were thrown to the ground, the air and sense knocked from them. The duck below looked up and saw the duck above, framed and obscured by a single lamp in the street. A wide brown hat adorned his head, and a cape flapped in the meager city breeze. Then, as suddenly as he appeared, he was gone. Louis Duck took a moment to awe at the scene, as if watching it from the outside of his own body. His slight frame began to fill up with a feeling. He couldn't identify it at the time. It was only later, when he assembled the gadgets and ordered the costume, found an acceptable base of operations, and began his own mass career, that he was able to give a name to the percolation that had taken place in that lovely alley. Me too. The dark streets of St. Canard let us now venture elsewhere, towards the brighter, smaller, and relatively friendlier streets of Duckburg. A company town if there ever was one, the entirety of Duckburg in some way worked for the mega conglomerate known as McDuck Enterprises. The man's face and name could be seen everywhere. Statues, plaques, dedications. Scrooge McDuck, and all of the Duck family before him, had their inevitable stamp on Duckburg. Everyone was familiar with the life story. Born in 1867 in Glasgow, Scotland, where he earned his first dime shining shoes in the street, he left, staying only long enough for his trademark accent to become permanent. Every schoolchild can tell you the precise order of events leading up to his setting in Duckburg, and forming the company from various mines and fortunes he had won and lost over the years. Why do people always seem to forget that about Scrooge? That he didn't inherit anything. The dude worked hard to become the richest duck in the world. He may be greedy and penny pinching, but the dude is still a businessman. He knows how to handle himself. The strange manners and misadventures of the robust capitalist delighted and infuriated the nation, and the Titanic Square monster in the center of the town, filled with the brim with money he had earned with his own two hands, was a curio and landmark unto itself. His death was the event of the year. Mourners and revelers alike all over the world showed up at the private service, trying to get a glimpse at the old man's ashes before they would be flown off to Scotland, never seen again. His final act of quirkiness was to leave his entire fortune, conglomerate and all, to his three young nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. While Huey and Louie very quickly took their third of the fortune and skipped town for greater pastures. One of the brothers remained. In McDuck Manor, Dewey Duck sits in his chair, in his study, staring into his fireplace. The multi-zillionaire, full executor of one-third of the McDuck fortune, and now acting CEO of McDuck Enterprises, can't help but feel a cloying emptiness in everything he does. He sleeps every night and wakes every morning. For breakfast, he places a single piece of toast. He begins the day's journey, wearing thin the already well-worn path between the mansion, money bin, and graveyard. Every day he stands on top of the bin, once filled with the brim of spoils of his uncle's adventures, many of them spent with the boys themselves. It now stands empty, its fortunes deposited in 3 huge bank accounts for the boys' private use. Dewey can't help but long for the feeling of swimming, as his uncle had the unique ability to do, through the glittering coins, letting them wash over his body, before surfacing and throwing quarters and pennies everywhere. He longed to open his mouth, and let the metallic waves wash over his tongue, spitting out coins like a whale releasing a waterspout. More than once he considered filling the empty monument with his own sizable spoils of his uncle's enterprise, but he never could bring himself to do it. It was not his money. He has no right to use the sweat, blood, and tears of his uncle to fulfill his own petty whims. You know, Dewey, that's exactly what Scrooge would want. He would want you to become your own man. Standing up on the high dive board his uncle had installed to facilitate his habit, Dewey, wearing his tasteful blue-powder business suit, was once more contemplating jumping into the empty bin, to meet the straggling pennies at the bottom that nobody has claimed. Every time, however, he backed away. Business calls. Episode 1. The Three Brothers. Hang on to the controls, little braces! A crackling voice snapped out with the force of a crotchety old man, with defiant lawns everywhere. I'm driving! With goggles already around his eyes and leather jacket done up, Huey Duck froze over the controls of the cargo plane. His eye twitched. A temper older than he could ever known, locked up deep inside, yearned to be unleashed. But he kept himself under control. All right, I was just horsing around. The old man, a bear, with hints of grain coursing through his brown coat, sat down at the controls like a man, slaying up to the wife of 80 years. Huey raised up his goggle to watch the particular whistle the old man had was stirring up his banana-colored antique. The cues, its sweet whispers as switches and instruments were pulled and activated. The sea duck was old. Hey, the sea duck is like family! That was Huey's first impression on the first day he arrived on the doorstep of Hire for Hire, looking for a legendary pilot that had been recommended to him by McDuck's old private pilot, Launchpad McQuack. Oh, don't tell me we're never going to get a chance to see Launchpad and Baloo versus each other in a air race. I would love that. It was well kept, and obviously still ran, but the plane itself, a sun-yellow platoon-footed heap of a seaplane, was a relic. Oh, and in case you're wondering, My money is on Blue winning that race. Oh, not because Launchpad sucks. Because I think Launchpad would manage to take the lead for most of the ride. Have everything handled. Would be perfect in every way. But then when he hits the landing... Huey thought back to the first day he listened to the propeller spin to life. The left one a little slower and stickier than the right. Is that because of the pineapples? I'm Huey. Nice to meet you. You must be Baloo the bear. Launchpad sent me here. Baloo's dead, the old man said, before slamming the door closed. Whack! Cried Huey, as the thin wood of the door smacked into his beak. Note: the author would love to use his Donald Duck voices for every single one of the Duck cast, except with the exception of Dark Green Duck and Company. However, he realizes that not everybody can actually understand him when he reads dialogue in his Donald Duck voice. As such, because he is not as good as the current voice actor for Donald Duck, being able to speak with the Donald Duck voice is still being understandable. Seriously, how does he do that? That makes no sense. It's impossible. The man's a genius. A sorcerer. But I digress. As such, he will find appropriate voices for each one of the triplets when he gets to them. Signed, the Management. His white feather hand rose up to rub the tip of his beak. The first week or so in the cave was rough. Every day he would come back to higher for higher, trying to find out what had happened to Baloo, and what he could do now that he was dead, only to have a new bruise appear on his beak, where he got too close to the closing door. Launchpad's absent-minded approach to life had gotten Huey into one hell of a pickle there for a while. Asking around on the street, he learned that Baloo had been dead for years, and if he was alive today, he would roughly be 80 years old. Launchpad, that fucker. He had that little detail slip his mind where he recommended a new flying teacher that wouldn't have the habit of tearing every other lesson into a crash course. Hey, Launchpad is awesome! You okay, Huey? His new teacher asked. You look miles away. Huey woke up out of the fog of the past with a start. He started to check the instruments, as if he had been wide awake the whole time. Hey, Cloud Kicker, can I use your windsurfer? No, that's only for little kids. Darn it. The reader's gonna be really mad if we go into the entire fanfic and he doesn't see that thing in action. That was his favorite tool in the show. I have read this fanfic and I am miffed. I'm fine, Mr. Cloud Kicker. Just fine. He didn't change the subject. Where are we headed for anyway? Just a little errand for the King family. Millions, I think. The Sea Duck floated along the lagoon, speeding up for a takeoff. No cocaine-filled condom stuff inside them this time, I hope. Old man Cloud Kicker shot Huey a hot look. I keep telling you, kid, that was a misunderstanding. Louie's family doesn't do that. That was a misunderstanding. Yeah, one you had to talk yourself out of to customs. Hey, I've known Louie King and his family longer than you ever will. I know Louie. He wouldn't, maybe not in your day, he wouldn't need to. Huey crossed his arms, but the kid's been through a lot since then, hasn't it? Kid, I agreed to teach you to fly and pop up in Baloo's place as a favor to one of his friends. You insult on insulting his and my most trusted friend, we call this off right now. As the engine of the seaplane cranked its gears and turned its propellers, the two men stared each other down. After a full minute, Kid Cloud Kicker's stare, weighed down by years of grumpy old man mojo, won out. Huey looked away and down, closing his eyes at the feet. To break the ice, the old man gave a booming laugh. Huey sucked down into the co-pilot's seat and smiled at the familiar signal. Argument over, you're off the hook. Cheer up, little britches. I forgive you, Kid said, before giving one last adjustment to his instruments. Now, let's soar! The buzzing engines propelled the seaplane over the salty lake towards the twin cliff walls that once upon a time served as the island's only defense against invaders. Lifting up and down in the water, the pontoons bounced on the surface of the lake, and were staying in the air for good, just in time to fly between the cliffs, plunging the cabin into darkness. Hitting the throttle, Old Man Cloud Kicker, tongue hanging out of the side of his mouth, handled the control wheel with a steady hand born of years of practice. Huey couldn't help but stare at the wrinkled, gray fur fingers wrapped around the wheel, lit only by a single bare pilot light above the co-pilot's seat. Staring steadily forward, towards the long, thin opening in the cliff, Huey felt a bit of the old feeling, the adrenalized feeling when a journey begins, when one wasn't sure if it would just be a normal trip, or if those familiar, dreaded wacky hijinks are about to ensue. Hugh's chest puffed out as the cabin was plunged into natural light, the sparkling blue ocean stretching out in every direction. He let his eyes refocus for a moment, or scanning the ocean, longing to take the sea duck, this beautiful, ancient relic of a more interesting age, search the world over for treasure, excitement. As the plane began to lose altitude, his eyes focused on the small island approaching his vision inside. If his uncle taught him anything, it's that business comes first. Let's begin it. Let's begin. Tail spin it, let's begin it. Tail spin it. Oh, of course he knew the lyrics. Honey, pray I never read a Chippendale Rescue Rangers fanfic. Maybe we should. On the other side of the world, the worlds of red and blue lit up the streets. Two men, holding sacks full of grain, rocketed down an alley, legs pumping as fast as they could. One gave a mighty leap, grabbing onto a lowered fire escape ladder. His companion, strangely, merely reached out with a hand, letting a strange tendril shoot out, wrapping around the fire escape itself and pulling its owner up. Once secure, the two men hoisted their bags and climbed. Unfair! 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 You're never gonna let the fact that they canceled the comics down, are you? Nope! As the men crawled their ways onto the rooftops, they could hear the sirens riding off down the street, around the corner and off on a wild goose chase. The light of the full moon illuminated the two men, as well as casting deep shadows, giving both a deadly pallor. One, a duck in a tweedy suit with patches on the elbows, reached behind himself to help up his companion, who both wore a flat cap, which obscured his face in the species. As the man's hands came in contact, the fingers of the second man seemed to wrap around the arm of the first several times, both up on their feet, and began to look around the roof for a good jumping point. I just realized this whole opening is a shout out to the Batman animated series opening. Suddenly, a flash, a sudden flare lit up the scene, blinding one, causing the other to barely flinch. As their eyes adjusted to the light, they saw a glimpse of green. The Tweety Duck suddenly felt pressure on his ankles, looked down to see too late to see the thin, strong cords wrapping themselves around his legs. With a pull, it slipped off his feet and hung upside down from a nearby water tower, impacting the metal scaffolding holding it up. The sack filled with green dropped to the ground, its valuable innards spilling and floating out over the rooftop. The duck howled in pain as he held his head. He was quieted by a hand holding his beak closed. Stealing. Petty. I thought the criminals in the town were better than that. From the Tweety Duck's point of view, the new duck, in a green face mask obscuring everything but eyes and beak, seemed to hang upside down from the ground, which was, of course, the opposite of what it really was. You mouse menace! You've been sorry! You stumbled your way into your league, boy! Who are you? A rather practiced pose was issued, as if dozens of hours in front of a mirror paid off. They call me the Green Phantom, evildoer. Never heard of you! Spike! Ha! I took care of your collaborator while you were hung up. I say I got this hanging hand. The green-clad duck stepped aside to reveal the accomplice splayed out on the ground, his hat dented by heavy impact. Spike! My only companion! You'll be sorry! You'll be sorry! Tell it to the judge, said the Green Phantom. You excuse me. I'll get these leaves back where they belong to. A legendary double take. Leaves? With a disbelieving look, the eyes of the green mass grew wide as the hero looked into the bag. It wasn't full of crisp green bills like he thought, but instead, crisp green lettuce. I was finally going to build my dream woman. I've used every available form of plant protein. Bug lettuce! It's a simple cytoplasm. It can't go wrong. With a horrible feeling sneaking its way into the Phantom's stomach, to rest in his throat, the crime fighter retrieved a small spatula from his utility belt. He drew the thin beams of light up and down the recently bagged criminal. Purple, shaggy flower petals served his hair, a thin layer of yellow pollen on the stems inside, feathers, and acid green fingers, leafy and thin. The Green Phantom, newest kid on the block, had picked a fight with an A-lister. Buster! What? You want a reward? The Green Phantom swallowed. He had followed the hero dramas of the 50s and 60s as well as anyone. Buster, a horrible victim of his greenhouse lab, seeks revenge against those that have wronged him in all plant-kind. One of the perennial villains of Darkwing Duck. And this is Buzzfruit, then that means... The green duck placed his leafy fingers on his beak and gave a piercing whistle. Spike! Kill time! Oh. Green Phantom looked towards the fallen accomplice. There was only a heap of empty clothes next to a bag full of green leaves. Hearing a slight rustle, as if something moved a bush, Green Phantom leapt out of the way before a long, spiked tendril cracked the roof with a whip-like crack. The Phantom stood quickly, reaching for his tool belt and pulling out a small, handheld teaser. What met his gaze was a huge, carnivorous plant. Twin bowls of its head were solar and wide, big enough for a young duck to fit inside. The thick stem was long and veined, was pulsed with some unknowable lifeblood. The thick tentacles, too many to count, were in constant motion, their dance creating light, rustling with the sound heard earlier. It'll do Mike Spike good to have a snack, said the mad Buzzfruit. The green heroes always taste the best. The Green Phantom didn't even have time to roll his eyes at the terrible threefold pun made at the expense before the tendrils bore down on him, forcing him into his first fight for his life. A creaking door signaled her entrance. The squeaky wheels in the tree tolerate traced their path along the darkened study. The clink of ceramic tea set gave away to her arrival by her side. The single tall window cast an even taller shaft of illumination over the scene. Blue moonlight spread over everything in the room. In the center, facing away from the window and the light, Dewey Duck sat in a plush chair. Tea, Dewey? Said the woman, thin and fretful, in the sensible outfit of a housekeeper. No, thank you, Miss Vanderquack. A sudden silence permeated the room. The familiar clinks of teacups were suddenly halted. You can call me Webigail if you like, Dewey, or Webby. We've known each other for that long that... No. And with that, the conversation was over. Webigail Vanderquack, her eyes cast downwards, began to squeak back towards the creaky door. She was stopped by a sudden voice. Did Kagan send word? Without answering, Webigail left the tree tolerary and walked back towards the easy chair. She pulled a steel telegram out of her pocket in her apron and handed it to the duck. She walked off silently, taking the trolley back up, opening the creaky door, and stepping out into the hall. Ah, come in, said an island boy, an ape wearing a loud island shirt and fake lee, the usual costume for his establishment, waved his ample arms over to the two pilots. Grandfather's waiting for you. Kit walked down in front, with a bit of a limp. Old war injury, he would say. Huey couldn't help but match his pace as he walked behind the old bear, suddenly introducing a limp into his own gait. Huey wasn't paying attention to what Kit and the young boy talked about. At all the times Huey came to Louie's, the little flock of children, always seemed to multiply every time, always had some bit of news to tell. Sam's teeth came in. Alice is dating someone or other who grandfather approves of. Vincent is dating someone or other he doesn't. Louis, or King Louis, due to his massive progeny, is the patriarch of one of the larger families on or near the Cape. A businessman at heart, in the 20s and 30s, Louis was able to eke out an impressive living selling drinks and food to the revolving door of pilots and tourists that visited Cape Suzette. Until about 5 years before, Louis had been the sole proprietor of Louis and kept his family out of it. However, health being what it is, he knew he would need more help eventually. He eventually brought a surprisingly large family into active staff and trained them all he knew so they could carry on once he passed on. King Louis's been busy! Of course, his children brought their children. A veritable army of tykes and kids serving beer and spirits to the few hungry travelers that would take their trouble and head out to Louis's small private island, either charm or repulse, depending on how dirty the kids are that day. Huey winced at a familiar noise. A rattling, heaving sigh of a breath that prefused a strange speech. "Cuz," another rattle, "is that you?" Huey figured he had to be at least in his 90s, pushed in a wicker-backed wheelchair by some ubiquitous grandchild. Wrinkles and spots creased the already naturally wrinkled ape face and arms. Even more than Kit, Louis's arms and open shirt revealed an almost completely silvery gray mess of fur. He was smiling a toothless, scratched at, slightly to his ear-to-ear smile, revealing the half-chewed remnants of a betel nut, straining the remaining teeth ornaments. "Hey, Louis, how's tricks?" With the slightest of hand gestures, the nameless grandchild was indicated to be to roll Louis closer. The long graying arms, shaking from the effort, rose to meet Kit in a hug. "Blue," said Louis, "I'm glad you'll do this favor for me." Another rattling breath. "Before I—" "Yeah, Louis," said Kit, humoring the old man. "What's the job?" "Who's this? Another kid following you around, Blue?" Huey rose his arm in a wave. "Hi, Louis." "Hopefully you keep out of this." A breath. "The war, you hear? Haven't seen our kid since the good old days." Huey gave a sideways glance to Kit. Louis's eyes had gone, along with his legs, his hearing, and most everything. Huey had never known Louis before he was struck with the tragedies of old age. But to hear Kit tell it, he used to be robust and lively as anyone. Suddenly, the accented voice spoke in a low timbre. "So now, it's all in the back. 20 crates of melons, ripe and juicy, delivered to this here." He casually stuck a rolled-up slip of paper into Kit's hands, taking another sticky breath. "This here dock on the mainland." Kit nodded slowly, so Louis could see. There was nothing in Kara's face as he patted the old man on the shoulder gently. "Don't worry, Louis. We old-timers have to stick together." A rattling, breathless laugh arrived at the orangutan's chest as he slapped his useless knee. "Ha ha, old-timer," he says. "You're only 16-year-olds, Kit. You crazy kid, you." Huey broke off as the conversation between old and older splintered off into talking about things that happened and people that went away 30 years ago. He sat at the bar, tended to by Louis's oldest grandson, Orrin. He wore the usual Hawaiian shirt of the establishment, but went without the lee, and the wide-brimmed straw hat was worn on a hook near the back. "So, what'll you have, Mr. Duck?" said Orrin in an obviously exaggerated accent. "Save the cheese for the vacationers, Orrin. I want a drink." "Usual?" "Of course." Orrin got busy, in the practice and steady motion of fixing up a bowl of Louis' specialty, the special ice cream concoctions that get you drunk without realizing it. Soon, a strawberry milkshake was sitting in front of Huey, sweating the humid cordial heat. "So, how's business?" asked Huey, making another conversation as the glass slid his way. "Not nearly as good as it could be. Grandfather, bless him, wouldn't listen to what I say, so we should have changed things around here." Orrin went to exhibit some of the natural accent of bartenders everywhere, cleaning an already clean gas. "We'll head into the island proper. Nobody wants to take a plane ride just to have a drink anymore. There's no profit in making this dump." "Then why stick around?" asked Huey. "Find greener pastures." Orrin looked horrified. "Leave my family behind? No, of course not. This is my home. Even if all the fathers and mothers without grandfather. No reason to leave. This was I had some control over matters. Huey let the conversation trail off from there. Kit walked up soon after. Get ready for it. Get ready for an ice cream headache, kid. We're leaving. It was easy to get back at the air. Huey took one last drag on the strawberry milkshake. The combination of alcohol and ice cream going straight to his head and bringing on a massive brain freeze. Ugh! Grunted Huey, holding his head and holding out to meet the old man on the docks. Whack! With a jerk, an automatic pulley system attached to a grappling hook, designed to lift up to 2,000 pounds of weight without a strain, wrenched out of the Green Phantom's unprepared grip, and was never seen again in the alley below. Oh, worst $3,000 I ever spent, sighed the masked man as he turned to face his doom. The gigantic flytrap, growing even larger by the minute, bore down on the green-clad hero. The roof where it stood seemed to crack and strain under the weight of the giant plant. Oh, I always love it when the good guys don't know when to use their own gadgets, squealed Bruce Root, standing on the smooth vine below the plant's stabbing jaws. Any last words, green fathead? Well, And no giving your last words to Geronimo and jumping out the roof to land in an open dumpster or something. I hate that! Green Phantom gave a quick look to the alley below. No, there were no convenient dumpsters or garbage cans to fall into, and no extra grapple gun to enact an emergency escape with. He gave a weak shrug and a weaker smile. You'll never get away with it? Poor choice, new guy. Stay aligned. Was outdated before I even started, and I've been in this little game for a long time. Spike! A long, spiked vine rose up, ready to crush the duck. Louis gulped, bracing himself for an impact. Poof! Suddenly, a small explosion. The rooftop was filled with smoke. Poof! Another explosion. Inside Spike's gaping maw, causing the creature to give an unearthly screech and backpedal with his tendrils. I am the terror that flaps in the night! Louis's heart skipped a beat. He's here. Oh, hell, no, yelled the leafy villain. The voice, strangely high-pitched voice for an adult male crime fighter, continued. I am the chainsaw that touched down your tree! I swear, Darkwing, ever since you came back, your little metaphors have gotten very violent, said Buster with a pout, as he waved his arms to disperse the smoke. I am atop the water tower. There he stands. Violet cape held taut behind him, wide-brimmed hat throwing a shade over his face. Darkwing Duck! Golly! Yelled the Phantom, before covering his mouth, knowing that superheroes shouldn't be too impressed with each other. I don't know. Have you seen Marvel Civil War? Have you seen how Spider-Man got when he saw Tony Stark? Are you all right, Greenie? Yeah, just fine,